Welcome to the Nearly Enlightened podcast. This is a high vibe toolbox designed to help you connect with your body, mind, and spirit. I am your host, Gianna Giarusso, here to guide you on a journey of self discovery, healing, and growth. Today, I'm joined by the amazing Danielle Manceau of Venus Rising, an intuitive healer, and the heart behind Venus Rising. Danielle combines Native American and Peruvian shamanic practices with modern tools to help us navigate the beautiful and messy healing journey. In this episode, we're diving into the symbolism and impacts of things like the California fires, the collective energy we're all feeling because of this full moon happening while we're recording. Tomorrow we'll still be in the full moon energy, but we'll be moving out of that. And we're going to help find personal opportunities for growth, even in challenging times. Danielle shares her deep understanding of energy and balance, offering insights and practices to help you release what no longer serves you, embrace your true self, and stay aligned in life's ebb and flow. Whether you're navigating tough emotions, looking for clarity in these crazy times, or seeking ways to feel more grounded, this conversation is here to inspire and support you. Let's dive in and get nearly enlightened together. Welcome back, Danielle.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. So I know I touched on it a little bit, but we're in this full moon energy, this Cancer full moon.
Oof, it's rocky. It's a little rocky. It's pretty rough, actually. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I think so we can talk a little bit about this, but like the Cancer full moon, we're really going deep into the feminine energies, deep into like the healing waters, deep into emotions. Yes. And it's very heightened right now, I think, because of where we are politically and like everything that's been going on in California, not just California, but like Asheville. It's just highlighting like a lot of, I think, injustice is the word that's coming to mind for me right now. So it's just like, for me, I know it's just like highlighting those things, and then the personal gets so much more heightened because of that too, because like, tell me if I'm wrong, but like tensions are so high, news and like what we're seeing on social media. So that makes all of like the personal feel like just as insane as well.
If not amplifying it more, honestly.
Yeah, because we're already in these like muddy emotional waters. So it's
Right.
like,
And we're being reflected back like what's inside of us. So like what we're seeing. And we're supposed to be in winter, which is a time of stillness and really just like trusting that all the inner work that you've done is going to finally come into like be fully realized and be a full transformation. But with that, we're supposed to like sit back and trust. So we're still being shaking out all of our fears. We're shaking out all the things that are still affecting us and triggering us, and all the emotions that are like kind of still deep inside being suppressed. So this is all shaking out for us like as a big collective right now, and we're seeing it. And you know this, I've said it before, that the physical is the most dense. So when we like rewrite a contract energetically, or we decide, hey, I'm going to let this go and I'm going to step into a new part of myself and I'm going to become different, I'm going to dream my reality into something different. Now we're seeing that physical kind of, I don't want to call it a repercussion, because like everything is forward moving, even when we feel like we're taking giant steps back. But when you think about it, the physical is the most dense. So like energy, we can be like, okay, clear the energy, but then your physical body, your physical space, everything around you is going to take time because it's more dense, and those things need to break down and release the energy. So what we're seeing collectively is a big release. But of course, there's fear in being able to trust and discern and putting up those boundaries of like, this is what I believe and this is what I don't. But there's so much information coming at us that is extremely overwhelming.
yes. And it's coming at us like faster than ever. And I think something else to touch on, I think it's really interesting, like all of the buzz around Mark Zuckerberg and him coming out with like the fact checkers and just like, I don't want to put my tinfoil hat back on, but just another win for the conspiracy theorists. It's like, we totally like ostracized, and there was a lot on people who knew what was happening from the beginning and was calling it out. And like, I don't want to sound like a whiny bitch, but I think we owe these people a huge apology, because a lot of these things that we chalked up as like crazy conspiracy theories, we're seeing in real time that it's real. And Mark Zuckerberg coming out and talking about the fact checking, and now he's going back on the fact checking. It's going to be community guidelines, and saying that he was threatened by the Biden administration. It's like we need to really take a hard look at this and start holding people accountable. And I think he is trying to find a scapegoat, or, whatever, but he testified under oath about a lot of this stuff. And what he said on the Joe Rogan podcast kind of contradicts some of the stuff that he was saying under oath. And so, like you said, it's really it brings up a lot of emotion when we're asked to flex that discernment muscle, and discernment
Hmm.
can be really hard. It can be really hard to trust your gut, and to, especially if it's going against the mainstream narrative, to like really stand firm in that. And I think that's what we're seeing happening right now in California. Like, we're seeing a gross misuse of government funds, and how the state is being led there, and how it's being led through this tragedy. And whether or not it was government started, that's like a conversation for another day. But I think it's important to just look at leadership, and like, it's going to wake a lot of people up, and we have to start making changes. And I I don't want to talk about just the problems and
Hmm.
like all of the things that need to change, but really finding solutions. And I think that one of the easiest way to find those solutions is to, and I talked about this a little bit last season, is to allow yourself to be the observer, to practice meditation, to practice going within, and get to know that little voice inside. Because the more you kind of work with that little voice inside, your intuition, the more you learn to trust, the deeper the calls are, or the louder the calls are. And it just becomes easier to kind of weed through all of the chaos that swirls around us.
Yeah, and we have to remember too, like when we're dealing with like social media and so much information coming at us at once, is like the further you go down the rabbit hole, it's like kind of like the further your energy expands out. And if you're not remembering to like pull your energy back to you, it's harder to stay in alignment with the truth of who you are and what your true beliefs and everything. And I was trying to pull up on my phone just now, but Marianne Williamson said last year that, I'm going to try and quote it the best I can because I could not find the direct quote, was that like, we are going to simultaneously be helping old systems die while we are helping to birth a new earth. And that's honestly exactly what's happening right now. Is we're seeing where all these systems have been failing. Insurance, we've been like the water supply, whatever, everything going on with California. And then this is just like our main focus. And I understand there's more things going on in the world, but you have to understand, like, this is our immediate reality. When we're far away and thousands of miles away, you can't feel that energy as much. But because it's closer to home and we're expanding, maybe out to the other side of our country, since you and I live on the East Coast, it's not going to be as easy to expand your energy all the way out into, further away countries and things like that. But that's why we can easily get sucked in as empaths and feel like this is happening directly to us. And in a sense, it is, because we're under the same system structure. And yes, we are in the world, but it's a little bit different because we are living in, a different country than other countries that are going through very similar systematic breakdowns and war and things like that. And we haven't been in this energy since the Revolutionary War for us. So it feels very much like the war on us. And we've just had several terrorist attacks, which I'm sure is not going to be the last of them. There's a lot of things going on, but the most important thing energetically right now is to draw your energy close. If you do expand it out, then bring it back in. If you're going to meditate and you're going to want to be, visioning with your higher self, like putting out these fires and helping these people and dreaming of this like beautiful new world, like bring your energy back close to you, draw that expanded vision from outside of you back in and hold it close, because that's what people are expanding and not like contracting. And so their energy is getting lost in what feels like the ethers. And it's a full moon. It's really fucking hard to get grounded today, especially. And
Yes,
around
we
the
were
moon
just
cycle,
saying that. We were like, okay, get ready for an unhinged podcast.
exactly, because I'm like, I don't know where my brain is, but like my mind is just so open that I'm like I am also struggling to get into the body and to contain my own energy. It's a constant practice. It's almost like let's say you have like a bunch of marbles in your pockets and some of them keep falling out. Like you need to keep containing them back into your pockets. Like keep making sure, oh, that one fell out. Like let me bring it back in. So there's a lot to it. It's very complex. There's even, the energies that are beyond my expansion right now that are coming in, and they just haven't been able to be fully understood yet because we are going through an awakening period.
Yes, and sometimes it's okay, and I've said this before as well, like it's okay to sit in that discomfort of the expansion and contraction of energy. Like it's okay to kind of be in these limbo states, and especially those in the healing world and the spiritual world, like we too fall for that, like wanting that instant gratification of like, oh, I'm not feeling my best, or I'm feeling like these emotional shifts. Like, let me sit and meditate. It's not going to necessarily like flip the switch. Like, sometimes it's okay to sit in that discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, like, yeah, we're sitting in this space of collective grief for
Mm-hmm.
California, for the country. I mean, some parts of the country still haven't healed from the last things that have happened, and whether or not you believe that they were natural disasters or something more nefarious, like it doesn't really matter at this point. It's the coming together, and like when the veil starts to lift and you start to come into these awakened energies, like there's no going back. So
Mm-hmm.
you can't
I've
put the
been
veil
saying,
back on. Like you
right?
have to kind of lean in and go with it, and feel the full spectrum of human emotions. Like it's okay not to be okay right now. It's okay to
Mm-hmm.
feel like all of the collective energy, but it's also important to, like you said, to contain it back and to bring it back and know that it's not all yours. Sometimes we're taking on other people's energies or emotions, and allowing yourself to realize that, and these are muscles that you need to flex. It becomes a practice and a balance and a dance to learn how to work with these energies, and it's not always easy, but it's always worth it. And you know backing up a little bit, last week's episode I talk a little bit about some personal things that I am going through, some growth and expansion that I'm experiencing. For the first time in a long time, I had somebody who like doesn't like my classes, and they brought some. I'm using this word loosely, but they brought some feedback to an administration, and it got back to me. And I'm trying to find that dance of like using it to propel me forward, using it for my highest good, not taking it personally, which is very hard because it did feel very personal. Trying not to let my ego get involved and to like stick my nose up and just be like, well,
Well, and here's the thing, I've been saying this too for the past couple weeks, is the energy is very much right now like, you can't go back, you don't even want to go back, but we don't know the way forward. And it almost creates this feeling of feeling stuck. So now all these things, like your personal experience with someone making a complaint or the authority or whatever, it's like I have been dealing with very similar things where I'm having to learn discernment, and I'm looking at ethics in the industry. And these are all very important things to me. And I've had to look at myself and say, like, why am I so triggered by this if I am triggered? And then use it to propel me forward. Because I mean, just the other day, I had a friend storm into my office who's in the same office building as me, and she was like, I need your help with this. I need to get it done." And we've been saying for the past couple months that there was a few things that we both wanted to be doing, and the universe was like, "Bitch, right now, because you keep sitting on it, and now is the time." So it's like we need to use it to propel. It's like enough is enough. You need to use these hardships and challenges to propel you to move forward. And whether it's like a tiny inch of a step that you're going, or it's like, okay, finally I'm just going to like start creating the thing that I said that I was going to for so long, right? And this is the challenge, trusting that like things are shifting. And even when it is like it's winter, like this is a time of challenge. This is a time of challenging our belief and our trust in ourself and the universe. And if you're still struggling with that, then it's a time to look inward still. It's like we can't have the things that we want yet because we still have that in our energy field. And it is very complex. Like obviously there's a lot of factors coming into place. There are a lot of conspiracies. It's really hard not to get sucked into that toxic and parasitic energy.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. And like going back to the conversation of parasites and parasitic infection, it's like that's not just energetic, it's also physical as well
Mm,
from
girl,
environment that we're dealing with. And going back to the full moon, these symptoms are heightened under the full moon.
very
So like
heightened. And I can speak to that personally because I've had them before. I've detoxed them
yes,
very recently, actually.
and that's why everyone is getting sick right now. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's because first of all, like over the holidays, everyone's sugar intake was like way more than it
Yep.
usually is. We're not eating, we're like eating like crap. We're eating like lots of heavy,
Mm-hmm.
rich foods. And like I'm someone who believes more in terrain theory than germ theory. And I think that over the
Mm-hmm.
holidays, we kind of create this perfect storm. There's like a lot of rushing around, there's a lot of obligations that people feel in a time when, yeah, we should kind of be going in the spiritual cave and like spending some more
Absolutely.
time going within, being quiet, finding stillness. Like we're doing the opposite of that because it's what society tells us to do, right? The holidays, like you
Oh
have
yeah.
to
And
hit
like,
all the holiday parties, you have to
mm-hmm.
spend all the time with your family and friends, like all of these obligations. It's like creating the perfect environment for illness. And now we have the full moon, which highlights it's when the parasites come out to play. And now
Yeah,
we're wondering why everyone is sick right now. Like everyone I know has some sort of cold or flu. And it's like, it's not just because it's cold or
absolutely.
flu season. It's not just because it's the winter. It's so much deeper than that.
Well, and here's the thing too, with going back to the physical and the density of it, it's like we are processing. Like people are getting coughs out of nowhere, a lot of respiratory, right? Like, and look, here we are. Respiratory system is all about grief,
Yes, grief
and
in the
where we're holding
lungs.
on to that. And we've just gone through a very similar process of being like, okay, these things do not work. So now we are grieving this old world and the world that we thought we were living in, because now it's a big reality that this has all been here. This is all stuff we turned a blind eye to, or that we were just like unaware of. And now that we're awakening, it can be a very isolating and lonely process, even though we're collectively all going through it, and we can feel sick. Going back to parasites, I know a lot of people who are having diarrhea right now. Diarrhea is all about wanting to rid things from your body. Like we want to rid this society of this disgustingness. We want to rid ourselves of this just unease, dis-ease, all of it. And it's not easy. There's other ailments, a lot of mucus. People are dealing with a lot of mucus. Now, mucus comes when when a toxin or a foreign substance goes into your body, and your body starts saying like, danger, danger, let me overproduce mucus to try and flush this out. And what's happening is people are getting inundated with the mucus. And I know because I've been dealing with it for years. And I've been sick for probably for the past 2 years, a full year, like 6 months out of the year. And I've had to go through this and learn it and really uncover. And, that's just part of who I am as a person is like, I need to know things and I need to understand them fully. I need to be an expert on what's happening to me and why. And that's just because I believe in grounding into something that's important and fully understanding and grounding the spiritual into the physical just because we can. So
Yes. And
it's very difficult, but it's part of my personal process. And this is just what I've observed through other people. And then we come up with some other ailment that is kind of, I call it like a parasitic decoy or a pathogen decoy, right? We come up with other emotions or we come up with some other ailment, and really these are just layers from what we're trying to clear from our energy field. So it's coming up in these ailments. So it like most, or I shouldn't say most, I believe that physical ailments are connected directly to emotions in your life and things that are coming up with that. So
yeah,
when
absolutely.
when they start coming up one after the other, it's easy to get scared because we're trying to diagnose each symptom, right? But if we can pause and look at it like, oh, I have a layer coming out right now, and damn, I must have like parasites in this layer. I must have like a big fear around feeling unprotected, unsupported if you're having back pain, things like that. And I'm seeing a lot of people with joint and bone pain right now. And this is just where all things were getting trapped. And it's uncomfortable for a period, but it's like maybe you need that time to shake it out. And
Yes, and
I mean,
if we didn't have the symptom, then we wouldn't be aware that something is happening. So like all of these symptoms,
right.
whether it's emotional, energetic, or physical, like
Mm-hmm.
use that as like a little bit of inspiration. Like it's coming, it's being brought to your attention for a reason. So like one of the things that I think is really important in this time is like I don't believe this is time to like set goals and like hit the ground running. Like
Right.
I do not believe that. I believe that this time is time to nourish yourself. It's time to eat the healing foods. It's time to rest. It's time to reflect. And I think this full moon is really, it's like kind of a culmination, right? Because um we haven't quite hit the lunar new year yet. So we're still like in this
Mm-hmm.
2024 energy. And what I think this is it's a great time to reflect on the last year, what's coming up currently, what sensations or like things are happening in your body, in your energy fields. And just notice. It's a time to notice and nourish. And once you have that foundation, then all of the other things kind of fall into place kind of naturally. Like once you let go of those energies that you're letting go of, once you nourish and kind of like replenish your energy stores, then you can really take a hard look at, okay, like, yeah, what are the goals? What's coming up for the next year for me? And you can kind of like take action steps and move through there. But like you need a solid foundation to start. And I think that solid foundation is nourishing yourself. And I think that collectively and um individually, this is a time like, can you reach out and offer any support, whether it's monetary or clothing or whatever, to whatever is happening in your world that you feel like needs a little extra support, whether it's what happened in Asheville, what happened in Hawaii, what is happening in Gaza, what is happening in California. Like, allow yourself to help, allow yourself to be the helper, to create those new systems that we want to see. And allow this also as a time to like restore your energy reserves, to focus on yourself, to support your lungs. Like, this time of year, it's so, if you're in the Northeast, like it's so cold and dry right now, and
Mm-hmm.
we haven't seen the sun. It's been behind a thick layer of clouds. Like, really nourish yourself. Like, take the time to rest, drink warm fluids, like,
Mm-hmm.
like herbal teas, like herbs are going to help support you during this time. Drink Eat nourishing foods like lots of stews and soups, and things that are high in nutritional value. And take the time to work on yourself, whether you go to the gym, go to a yoga class. Like, allowing yourself to sweat not only helps you move things out physically, but it's also a huge energetic release, like way beyond the fitness. Like, movement practice has been really important for me. Like, especially, like, I've been very candid, like the last week, very difficult. And like, I don't want to move. I just want to get in my bed and kind of like not leave the spiritual cave, but
Well, I
allowing
can totally relate to that. I feel like I haven't worked out in forever. And I don't know about you, but I've had like the food ick. Like
like not a
everything
big
just
appetite. You're the second person to say that to me.
just like my whole family is going through it. And like, yeah, the stomach bug has
Well,
run through the house. And but the thing is, like, nothing is feeling nourishing. I went through a period where like water tasted disgusting. I actually started putting rosemary and slices of orange in my water because those things are in season.
yeah.
And it made me feel better than like putting lemon in my water or like, I don't know, just anything. And nothing was resonating. And still, even to this day, I'm just kind of like, I look at food and I'm like, I know I need to eat, but like, and I just kind of grab whatever because it's easy.
That's also normal this time of year. Like, our digestive
Mm-hmm.
fires aren't as strong as they are. And if you look at it back ancestrally, it's because food was scarce in the winter time.
Mm-hmm. It
So,
makes
like, if
sense.
this is the time to fast, like, fasting and prayer is so important. I actually have a friend who is doing a 40-day juice cleanse right now,
Wow.
and pairing it like spiritually. So there's also like a biblical component because of the 40 days. Um, so
Very cool.
yeah, I know. I should reach out to her and maybe see if she wants to come
Yeah,
on.
I was gonna say I'd love to
But
hear more about that.
um, and personally, like, I don't think juice cleanses are the way to go this time of year just because it's cold.
They're
And like I
cold.
said,
Yeah, yeah.
our digestion is like not as like, we need warm right now. So I think more of like a Khichdi cleanse, like
Mm-hmm.
Ayurvedic Khichdi cleanse would be more appropriate for this time of year, or just doing like a water fast and just doing like warm water and lemon, and
Yeah.
not telling people to not eat for long periods of time, like
No, yeah. Just saying it's normal. It's normal this time
six
of
to
year to not
24
really have the
hours.
appetite.
Right. And like, a huge part of parasite cleansing is like starving off the parasites, and
Mm-hmm.
like heavy metals feeds them, sugar feeds them. So like I said, everything throughout the holidays was just like kind of
Well, and the hard part is too is a lot of people, and this is just from like my experience as an energy practitioner and personal experience, is that sometimes we think like, oh, we need supplements and things like that to kill off parasites, and sometimes that triggers other pathogens because these parasites do not want to leave the body. And then people do a cleanse and they detox and then they give up and they haven't gotten through the full detox cycle and things start to embed deeper in the body. And it just becomes a harder process. So,
yeah.
what I like to say as an energetic practitioner is that, this is such a, like a famous quote is like, where intention goes, energy flows. Like, isolate in your mind's eye these parasites or this energy that you're working on, isolate it so that other things aren't triggered as badly. Because if we're just going to go in and do a parasite cleanse, then it's like a free for all for all the shit and the bugs inside your body. And then people give up because they're like, oh no, this is like terrible. I feel disgusting. The heavy metals start coming out. Can't even tell you how many people lately have been like, everything tastes bad, it tastes like metal. Yeah, because we're detoxing our water systems. We're detoxing all the stuff in the air. We're detoxing all the crap that we're having in our body. It's totally normal, but I know just as much as everyone else that it is extremely frustrating because this is so much at once that we are realizing it has been infiltrating us, and also because our boundaries have not been strong enough with it. And it's really a slap in the face.
Yes, I think we're all getting that like collective wake up call. And
Mm-hmm.
like, this isn't it's not to scare. And I know the parasite talk like really is very
It's
triggering for a
so
lot of
normal.
people, but
Mm-hmm.
like, I started parasite cleansing like 4 years ago now, 3
Yeah.
years ago now. March will be like, yeah, 3 or 4 years. And we're mammals. Like,
Hmm.
uh, it's a completely normal part of being a mammal. Like,
Absolutely.
I mean, horses, even dogs, cats that live with you, chances are you parasite cleanse them at least once a year. So, like, why
Yeah.
aren't we doing it for ourselves? We are like the only developed country in the world that doesn't talk about this regularly. And it's as simple as taking some herbs three
Hmm.
or four times a year. Um, I had some
Yeah. My
pretty,
acupuncturist even said that
yeah,
when I was processing and purging parasites pretty recently, it like prompted her to do a little bit more research, or maybe like her algorithm started coming up because we had been talking about it, and she was reading. She's like, it says these articles with acupuncture say like if you have a pet that you should be doing even more parasite cleansing because they bring them in. It's just the nature of it.
yeah.
Ticks, all that. Most of us have tick-borne illness or bug. Like
Mosquitoes.
this is what all these like chronic symptoms come down to, and it's
Yeah.
like we just have to purge it from the body, and people don't allow themselves to get to the root cause because they're diagnosing every little symptom. And
Symptom.
I
Yeah.
know because I do it too. We get trapped in fear. We feel like shit. It's really hard to get out of your, negative victimhood when you don't feel good or you're in pain. And that was the other thing I wanted to bring up was with this full moon, I was just reading. I follow Elizabeth Peru, and I'm a member of her like daily energy updates. And she posted today about the full moon and how we're still transmuting pain from 2024
Yes, I saw
with
that.
this moon. So I mean, talking about physical pain, talking about emotional pain, we're talking about just like birthing pain. Like we're like simultaneously dying and birthing at the same time. It can be extremely confusing. Half of us are probably, transmuting the death process. The other half is probably, you know, birthing the new earth. Like this, there's a lot going on. And like people are going to naturally feel crazy because we have a human brain, we have ego, we have we have a physical body that all this information has to process through. And if you're not continuously flushing it in the spiritual, the energetic, the mental, and the physical, it's going to become more clogged.
Yes, and I think the more that we tap into these energies too, the more that we like need these tools. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think we're all collectively up leveling. I think since 2020, I've said this since 2020 that I thought 2020 opened up a portal for like it was like a spiritual war, and
Mm-hmm.
there were two things that you needed to do: get right with yourself and get right with God. And like I am seeing that play out more and more every day. And like I think about those words that I said in March of 2020, and they're still so pertinent now. And I think that's the way through this. It's really
Yeah,
to sit with yourself, to be the observer, and it's
I
time
think,
for not only nourishing self-care but also reaching out and like being in community. Like this is the way
yeah.
forward, and this is how we start to create those systems that actually work. So, like, in the last season or whatever, even this episode, we've talked a lot about like the collective problems and energies that we're
Mm-hmm.
moving through. And I think it's important to start talking about, okay, how do we not sit in this? How do we move through this shadow work and make it be
Right.
productive for the collective? And I think, we're all going through that on a personal level as well. It's like what I was talking about last week is like I could have continued to sit in this like sour, salty place. But I know that even though it was like an annoying thing to deal with, even though it kind of didn't really have merit or whatever, that this too is for my higher good. And it's all happening to continue to propel me forward to make me the best teacher that I possibly can be in this time and
Yeah.
space.
And I think people forget like it's about you before it's about anyone else. It's about you before it's about anyone else. Like if you're being triggered by certain things, like it's about you. It's about you, not the other person yet until you've gone through the emotions or the triggers. If it doesn't affect you at all, it's about them. But if you're feeling some type of way about what's going on around you, it's also about you. Like I had to look, what a reality. I mean, I don't know if I've gone into depth on this on the podcast, but I left a 15-year career. I was making like great money. I had my own apartment. I picked up my life and moved into my sister's house. I have like barely any possessions. And I look at the fires happening and I'm like, how dare I even think that possessions were what this is all about? Like, I'm safe. I'm fine. Your home is about your comfort with yourself. Okay. Like a home can bring you comfort, of course. Money can bring you comfort. It's not going to bring you happiness. It's not going to bring you um that real true sense of
Fulfillment.
belonging.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just interesting to see like how we're also like looking at, hey, what would, I don't know about you, but like all over social media, I've seen people doing their like, what would you pack up if this were to happen to you? And I've seen
Yes.
some very interesting things, and everyone's going to be different. Like, um, I don't know. I was like, my passport, for one. Like, I don't know why that was my first item, but like this is just things like we're getting the gears moving and like shifting our focus to what's truly important. And that is like supporting ourselves, supporting our community, and really flushing out the things that like the people who have been taking advantage of us, the systems that's been taking advantage of us. And now we see, and it's our collective power to be like, this shit doesn't matter. You can't fool us. That's part of taking the power back. It's like, hey, listen, I don't even need all this stuff. So if the world was going to come crumbling down, I'm still here. And sure, are people gonna leave the earth and it's going to be their time, but that's like their soul contract. And when I tap into energy and stuff, and like especially I know you and I have talked about like aliens and whatever, it's like when I tap into it, it's like we're all just souls. We're different species. And that's why we feel so much compassion towards animals. We feel compassion towards the land. We feel compassion towards each other. And we are unfortunately like pitted against each other. But I think the realities of that are coming to fruition right now, where it's like, here's all the fear you had and it was bullshit, and you're still okay. And we go through this personally too. This is definitely part of like that transformative period. And just to touch on, just that different elements, like fire transmutes energy. It burns up what no longer works. This is what like traditionally, like if you were going to do like a shamanic ritual, then you would put like your hopes and dreams, the things that you want to release out from your body, from your world, you would put it into a fire, and then you turn your back on that fire as a symbol, just like horse trainers. They turn their back on the horse as a symbol of trust. Like, you come to me. You come to me. So like this is like, I'm not saying turn your back on what's happening. Like we're not going to turn a blind eye, but like trusting like, okay,
That even
this is
this
like,
is for the
let's
higher good.
throw that stuff that these systems that aren't working, throw this anger into that, like release it, like utilize kind of what we're seeing. Like, and then to touch on like Asheville, like the water element is all about your emotions and these huge emotional upheavals and things just coming up. And how do we let our emotions like destroy us in some ways, right? Because we're too afraid to deal with them. We stuff them down, and then we're seeing it on the rise outside of us. And nature's like, okay, everyone's been suppressing, so here it is. You finally have to look at it. It's like a pressure cooker. The more we suppress things, the more that things build up.
Yes. And like, it's funny talking about those two energies, water and fire. It's also, I've talked about this a lot too, having a Christian background and going to Catholic school, like pretty much my whole life. I've studied the Bible back to front. And
Mhm.
like the water and fire energies in the Bible are also very present. They're symbols that God uses, and they're ways that God has used to cleanse the earth before. And we're looking, if you really zoom out and look at it with the observer's eye without any veil or any undertones from the mainstream media, you look at Asheville, like that's where they're mining for
Mhm.
different elements to create microchips for phones and computers and
Mhm.
all of that stuff. So you like look at that, okay, put that aside. God floods that land, or maybe it was the government, who really knows, but
Mhm.
it's like a completely washing away, a cleansing. And then you look at what's happening in California right now. And if you really zoom out, you look at all of the stuff happening with Diddy, and I'm sure many
Right.
others. Like, we watched all the stuff unfold with Jeffrey Epstein, and like we still are waiting for his list of clients. And you
Mhm.
see a part of California which has a high concentration of celebrities
An
um
elite, yes.
and elite, and a lot of their homes were burned. And it's like, okay, was this planned? Was this God cleansing? Like, is it a little bit of
It's hard
both?
to it's
I
really
mean,
hard. I said to someone yesterday because she was like, "Well, all these rich people can rebuild their homes and stuff like that." And I was like, "But there are elderly people who've been
there's
living
tons of
there."
regular ass
So there's
people that
like
live there. Yeah.
we have a lot of perception that like things are one way, and we're forgetting about the other little things that make it up. So this is really eye-opening for people to see like how truly like impactful this is on so many things beyond
Yes.
just people.
I mean,
Okay, this
well,
is like the land. Like think of all that vegetation is gone. Well, if it rains, there's going to be landslides, mudslides. Like that's even worse.
yeah.
That's almost
And
even worse.
something I've been thinking about a lot, there's a high concentration of farmland there.
Hmm.
Living in the Northeast, a lot of our produce in the wintertime comes from California and Mexico.
Hmm.
And I think we're going to see huge repercussions here. And going back to people like, California is also a place where we see both ends of the spectrum. We see the poorest of the poor
Hmm.
and the richest of the rich, and they all live in this same
Together.
little area.
Yep.
So it's like not just mansions were lost, but like a population of people that we forget is also
Hmm.
being hugely affected here. So it is so nuanced, so layered. There are a lot of emotions that come with it. There is a lot to unpack because there are a lot of psyops and red flags and propaganda. So really weeding through all of that, I think it comes back down to like what I keep saying is being the observer. Like, I think that there is
Hmm.
huge value in meditation, and it's not a detachment from reality, but it's allowing yourself to deal with the chaos around without assigning any
Absolutely.
attachment or emotion or meaning to it, and just allowing yourself to sit with whatever human emotions come up, because we are meant to feel the full spectrum of it without being like pulled down into the waters, into this drowning
Yeah.
energy.
Well,
So
it's so important to activate that parasympathetic nervous system so that like you can get to that point of your body can release what it needs to, your mind can, relax. If some there's different modalities to do this, but like through meditation and, I call it journeying, which they're pretty, much one and the same. It just depends on who's leading it. And as you go on these journeys, whether like you are visualizing something or you're not, it's not about turning your mind off. It's about giving yourself the space to explore. And I think people get confused by that. And they're, especially when I talk to people about, being an empath or like having psychic abilities, they automatically think that like when you're like, when you're supposed to hear from your spirit guides or you're going to hear from, the divine, that like you're going to hear it like you and I are going to hear through our speakers. And it's not often like that. Sometimes it can be a thought. Sometimes it can be, like a far away voice or just like a memory from a movie that you've seen, like a dialogue. Like I think people are not giving themselves the opportunity to explore because they're afraid that they're doing it wrong or that they just don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's kind of where this was born of. It's like it's just finding the tools that work for you and acquiring
Mm-hmm.
those tools and utilizing them to your benefit. And for me, that's been yoga, that's been
Mm-hmm.
meditation, that's been acupuncture, that's been massage, that's been energy work. But it's different for every person and you just have
Mm-hmm.
to be willing to try, be willing to put yourself out there and to find those tools that work for you because you're going to know pretty much right away.
Absolutely.
You're going to
Yeah.
know. Like the first time I was so resistant to yoga for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that anyone who did it was just like crunchy and crazy and like I was like, just not for me. But then that I finally allowed myself to have an open mind and to be a beginner. And I went to my first yoga class and I was hooked right away. I was like, that kicked my ass and that was challenging and that was hard as fuck. And I didn't know what I was doing. But like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, like you could just, like, I could just I felt like every cell in my body was turned on. I felt so alive and so,
Mm-hmm.
like you just know when it works, it just works. And like something that's come through the feedback that I received last week is like not every student is gonna get along, like want to work with every teacher, and not every teacher is for every student, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like allow yourself to explore, allow yourself to be wrong, allow yourself to just try these things out without kind of like the mental gymnastics that comes along with it. Like
Oh,
just
absolutely. And I think we could go on a whole new episode, like talking about like epigenetics and criticism and becoming defensive. And there's just so much that we could lean into on that. And it's just like, again, it goes back to looking within. It's about you before it's about someone else. And that's okay. And going through those emotions and like seeing where you actually land and giving yourself the time to process how it made you feel, what it made you think, all those things, how it triggered you, if at all. And then you get to choose to respond or act in a different manner, right?
yes. Yeah. This is exactly what I went through last week. Like I had to sit with the ups and downs and like the
Mm-hmm.
looking within, like, why is this triggering me? What wound is this poking at that it's becoming
Mm-hmm.
so personal? I'm so attached to it. And like, where is this an opportunity for not just me, but for everyone involved? And I really do
Agreed.
feel like I got to that place. You know, I had a meeting with my manager and I was very candid about how I felt. I was very candid about what I needed to move forward. And I was very open in offering a few different solutions
Mm,
to the experience at hand. And I really do think everything happens for a reason. So I, I spoke very candidly about it last week. So I'll just share a little bit about what came to be. So I had talked to the manager about how I just thought it was handled kind of poorly. And it wasn't handled with yoga as a whole in mind. Like yoga
mm-hmm.
is way more than the physical practice of asana. And I felt like it was an opportunity for everyone to get a little bit curious, like the student came with I use the word feedback very loosely because it wasn't really feedback. It was just like kind of an attack on my class
Mm,
um, about her not liking to flow on her own because I always offer a little, I mean, you've taken my class before, I always offer a
yeah.
little portion of class where you kind of have the ability to do the sequence that I led you through, or it's a time to explore in your body, or it's a time to be still. And that is challenging for students. And I understand that it's challenging for students. It's meant to make you uncomfortable. It's like the magic of yoga. And it's why I personally practice. It's to allow yourself to move beyond those self-limiting beliefs of whatever your mind throws at you and allow
Mm-hmm.
yourself to stay present with the breath and with the movement or with stillness if that's what you're choosing. So what the opportunity there was like I invited the manager to speak with that student and say, "Hey, we're not going to tell Gianna who you are, but she would really like you to come back to class and give it another try. And this is her why. This is why she has you practice the way that she does. It's an opportunity for growth and expansion." And it
And
was real.
muscle memory, things like that. I've heard you say
Yes.
many times in your class that it
Yeah.
becomes about muscle memory. And
Finding that meditative flow where
yeah,
it's just you and the movement and your breath and you can let go of all the thoughts. And if you can't let go of the thoughts, then amazing. That is part of the practice, is to notice what's coming up for you and to let the practice be letting that go without assigning attachment, emotion, or meaning. I mean, people on the podcast have probably heard me say
yeah,
that thousands of times too. So this is just an opportunity for me to get more clear with my students on my why. And
exactly.
that was where it was growth for me because I'm not changing my style of classes. I'm firm in that. I'm comfortable with how I teach and of course it's always evolving and I'm always learning and even though I'm a
Mm-hmm.
teacher, I'm always a student, but I think the core of my class is it's solid. It's there
Yeah.
for a reason and I fully stand behind that. So I just think it was an opportunity for growth for everyone involved. And so
Oh,
how
absolutely. And as somebody who does not like the free flow, because and just hearing you say it too about this other person, it's like I'm like, yeah, I definitely struggle because I feel like I need to be led because in a way it's like someone doing it for you, right? So if someone's just like you're just kind of like you can be just like mindless almost where it's like when you're letting go and you're like, okay, now you're on your own, that can be a struggle. And I know it's been a struggle for me and like trusting in myself. So I think this ultimately comes down to like understanding like you are helping others to trust in themselves. It's not just
yes,
about like being in this meditative state. It's like I've led you to this point and guess what? Like your body, your mind and your soul know at this point, allow it. Like lean
yes.
into that trust and if those triggers come up that like you're not trusting yourself and you really do wish that I was leading through like just know I'm here to cue you like here's where we are like and where you're at is fine. People really latch on to that like we become
The
reliant on
handhold.
others.
Yes. And I see it even with energy work. You know, I see it
Mhm.
when I first started my spiritual journey and I was going to Reiki like every single week. And if I didn't go to Reiki, like I felt like I was
Mhm.
like an incomplete human. It's like,
Same.
no. And
Mhm.
I didn't, yes, those are great tools to utilize when you need them. But like when you become reliant on it, it becomes more of a detriment than it is for healing. And it's what I go back to. Like, I think the age of the guru is dead. It's why Nearly Enlightened was born because I want to
Mhm.
empower people to find the tools that work for them. I don't want them to feel like they need their hand held by a teacher or a guru or
Mhm.
a coach or like whatever authority figure you want to place there. Like, I want people to find it within themselves because you touched on it a little bit in this episode, but everyone has clair abilities, everyone has psychic
Mhm.
abilities, everyone has other senses. You just have to figure out the tools that work for you and start to tap into those gifts. Like any spiritual leader, any spiritual teacher, they're not special. They leaned into the work that gives you the gifts, that gives you the
Mhm.
tools to like make this easier. But you
I
can
always say it's everybody has the ability. It's your personal life experience that makes it your medicine.
I love that.
Your experience that's what makes it your medicine. So you can tap in all these things. Doesn't mean you need to become an energy worker. If you do, great. Your part of your medicine is that you probably at one point didn't trust yourself and didn't free flow and
Yeah.
have that free fall into being like shit now I'm on my own and now it's like that's part of your medicine is you're teaching people like, hey, through my yoga class, like you're going to be free and on your own, and it might be uncomfortable at first because here's what we're doing. And if you have this lack of trust in yourself and you really want that like handholding, and it's a little bit of codependency if you're asking me.
Yeah.
And it's like great. And of course some people do go to yoga for that, like me. I'm like, great, I want to like, yeah, I want to have like a 20-minute shavasana and like sit on my ass and lay down and have my meditation. Some other people might want a full 60 minutes of just moving.
Yeah.
They don't want that. You
Yes.
know,
And
I personally, I don't like 10 minutes of pigeon. That's not my jam because I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's my own shit.
Yeah.
It's also like, it's about me before it's about anyone else. It's about me before it's about the instructor, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that was one of the things that I brought up. I was like, where is this isn't, and I say this in my classes a lot when we're flowing on our own, and I say, I know this is uncomfortable, and I know like you could be throwing all kinds of insults at me in your head, like, hate to break it to you, it ain't about me, it's about you. So like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, why are you so triggered? Why are you so resistant to this? I mean, like you said, yeah, I was resistant to that too, because yeah, you want to just go and be led and be taught and whatever, but you, in my classes, like, you are going to learn more than the asana. I'm going to make you go beyond, even if it's a power yoga class where even
Mm-hmm.
if you're showing up just for fitness, like, sorry, this is more than just fitness for me. This
Yeah.
is it really is. And the fitness part of it is great, but it's the other seeds that get planted. It's the workout of the mind that becomes the most important work. And I got into yoga because of the physical, but when I noticed all of the benefits of the mind, I'm an overthinker, I'm a Gemini
Mm-hmm.
air sign, always up in my head. So when I learned these tools to kind of ground and to get out of my head and to realize that not every thought needs validation, like, that was hugely empowering for me. And yes,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I want to bring to my students. And part of that being uncomfortable, whether it's in pigeon or whether it's in movement, or whether it's in stillness, because I have a lot of students who, yeah, they come for the physical practice. So they're really adverse to the stillness. And I truly believe, and not that I truly believe, like, it is fact that the most
Yeah.
advanced practice is in the stillness. It's getting comfortable being uncomfortable and getting outside of your comfort zone. It's letting
Mm-hmm.
go of the things that come up in your mind. Whatever the mind throws at you is an opportunity to practice being in center. And I think that even when we zoom out and we're looking at this collectively, all the stuff happening in California, in Gaza, in Hawaii, in
Literally, there's
Asheville,
somewhere
like
everywhere.
something everywhere, exactly, all of those things that's being brought to our attention, it's not to ignore, it's to witness and to notice and to sit with the uncomfortable of like, okay, we were doing it this way for so long. These are the results. It's not working. How can we sit with this to move forward, to create something new? Like,
Right. I
Jamie.
think so many people look for a solution outside of themselves, and it's
Yeah.
like I said earlier, like no one has true power over you, and it's a matter of bringing that power back and like looking at yourself. Where am I bringing in this injust? Like, where am I feeling unjust in my life? Where am I feeling like, wow, this is a war on me specifically, right? Because we're seeing a lot of war right now, especially like the spiritual war that's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, the light's already won, but the density of reality has got to go.
Yes, and it's that like pull back before we propel forward. Like, Jamie
Mm-hmm.
talks about this a lot in her work. She's been on the podcast twice before, and like pretty much a lot of the guests on this podcast I know because of her. But she talks a lot about expansion, and in the expansion, before we can expand, there's contraction. And even if
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about it in the birth space, you got to go through those contractions to bring the baby into the world. And we're seeing that same thing play out collectively. And I think that this is just part of our contraction before we expand. And I did say in my prophecy, in 2020. Like, I think this whole decade is going to be about that. It's going to be about finding that contraction and letting that propel us forward. And right now, we're
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of this decade. And I think we're going to see like the most movement that we're going to see in this decade. And not to scare, not to bring up fear, but I think that before Trump takes presidency, we're going to see a lot more. I mean,
Absolutely.
we've already started to see it, and to see what's playing out in California. Like I just saw this morning that they just evacuated, I think it was San Fernando Valley. So like another part of California, and like allow yourself to hold space for the grief,
Mm-hmm.
um for that
Transmute that energy by
yeah.
taking care of yourself. By like, if you need to sleep because you're feeling some type of way or you're not feeling well, transmute that energy by taking care of you. That's the
Yeah.
best that you can do, honestly.
And reaching out, like I feel like a lot of people have more, I think more trouble taking care of themselves than, I think it's
Yes.
easier to kind of do something nice for someone else than to do something for ourselves, because sometimes there's like all this guilt that comes with it. So if
Well, there's
you're
so much judgment. What are you
yeah,
doing for that
yeah,
cause? And it's like, there's multiple ways that you can support.
yeah, I
And
mean,
like
light a
sometimes
candle
that's
and say a
energetically
prayer.
holding space.
That takes nothing. That
Hmm.
takes no effort, no energy at all. Light a candle, say a prayer, or like if you're not into that,
Yeah.
like, whatever, just send like
But like if you have a
loving.
platform, great. Make sure you're reaching as many people and like letting them know how they can help. But like for the people who feel like very small in this, that's like you can hold the space. You don't have to be like, well, I don't have the money to donate. I don't have the money to like, how do I get clothes to this place? How do I get supplies here? Don't worry about it. Like hold the space. Transmute the energy. Let your body go through what it's going through. Like let yourself pause. And
Y-
that's like we're not gonna like fighting it and like just making yourself worse and worse is not helpful in this.
yes, and I think the fighting it, even talking about early in the year and setting goals and letting that propel you forward. Allow yourself to even sit in this space now. Like, you don't have to have goals
Mm-hmm.
yet. You don't, it can just be about finding that nourishing space for you and for those around you.
Yeah.
Let that guide you forward.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have to go to that yoga class or sign up for that gym membership or like sign up for that fancy program. Like,
Yeah.
just allow yourself to find the stillness. Like I've said it before, the winter is about finding the pause. It's,
Mm-hmm. It's
and
uncomfortable. We're
yeah,
used to chaos. And it's like it's supposed to be a time of stillness and now we're in this chaos and we're like, what the fuck? It's a lot. It's a lot. And it's like, did we energetically create chaos because we're all addicted to it? Because we live in a world that's like hustle, hustle, hustle. This is also something to look at. Can
yes,
this be the detanglement? Can this be the detangling of the chaos that we've been wrapped up in?
yeah.
Can we go in reverse instead of running into chaos? Can we allow this chaos to be the propeller to unwind from it?
Yeah, so I talk about this with break method a little bit, because break method helps us identify those brain patterns that keep us stuck. And like you're saying about like being addicted to chaos, like
Mm-hmm.
our brain doesn't, if that's what our brain defines as safety, even though it's not healthy,
Mm-hmm.
our brain is still going to always find the chaos because that's what it knows to be safe. So yeah, it's like noticing like, oh, are we just stuck in these patterns because this is what our brain thinks is safe? And when we detach from these patterns and try to find something, a new way of being, like, is our brain and reality pulling us in another way? Because your brain
Yeah.
always wants to know what comes next. So when you jump into
Well,
that
and
fear of
that's the
the
thing.
unknown,
And we want to know.
yeah,
Like, I know personally, I'm like doom scrolling TikTok because I'm like, I need to know what's happening. And there's like 55 different conspiracy theories. And then I'm just like ready to throw up because I've just taken on all this stuff. And now my mind is like jumbled up and I can't get grounded and things like that. And so sometimes it's like, put the phone down, grab a book, and just, do what it is. I mean, for some people, for me, it's reading. That really calms me, protects me. Some people, it's going to be like going to the gym. Some other people, it's going to be going for a drive.
A
Some people,
nature
it's going to be
walk.
sewing. It's
Yep.
going to be sewing or whatever it is. Doing a puzzle. I love doing puzzles because it just allows your mind to just kind of focus on something else. And it's hard because we become addicted to needing to know what's happening.
Yes. And what's next?
Right. And
And
then we have the people who are just like completely out of touch and have no clue what's going on. It's like, are we living in different timelines? What's happening? But not everyone can be in the same place.
yeah.
We need people who are in that space of like, oh, I don't even know about this. So how could I be fearful of it? I don't even like, then there's other people like, I know about this. Like people need to know about it. And so, I mean, we could go on and on for like probably 5 hours talking about all this stuff because
Uh,
everything and energy, human life, everything has become and is seemingly so complex.
yes. And there's
And
no, it's not black or white. And I think
right.
just being in this space, like this podcast could feel a little chaotic and like our
Mm-hmm.
energies are back and forth, but that's what this is. This is a conversation to spark inspiration, and there is really no right answer. There's no wrong
Mm-hmm.
answer. It's tapping into your own individual needs. It's letting go of feeling the need to be right or to know what's next, and to allow yourself to get comfortable being in the unknown.
Yeah.
And like whatever that looks like for you, figure out what that is. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
different for you than it is for me. Although reading, like I also really enjoy that.
Yeah.
It's in
Mm-hmm.
the last couple of years, it's something that's really saved me because I was one of those people who were reading for intellect, and it was always like a yoga book, a spiritual book, a self-help book.
Yeah.
Like it was something to gain knowledge. And like 3 years ago, I read my first fiction book that I read in a very long time. And
Oh, it feels so good, doesn't it?
oh my God, it was
It's like
like,
jumping into someone else's story. You're like, I mean, it's not disassociating, but it is kind of like, let me disassociate from my own shit for a while.
but also it's like, I think that it allows you to jump into imagination. And that's something that as we
Mm-hmm.
get older, we kind of like don't play
It's
in
like
that
traveling.
imagine.
It's like
Yes, it's like,
traveling.
yes,
You get to go to this other place. You get to see this other lifestyle. You get to, like there's so many factors to it. And it really is, it's so beautiful. And like, I will say, like, I read a lot of fiction and like rom-coms are my jam. But like these books always come at the right time. And it's like whatever message they have, I'm like, oh, that's why I'm reading this right now. Sometimes I can't even get into a book. And then I'll pick it up like weeks later and I'm like, okay, because now is the time. I get
yeah.
it. Like, and I used to be like you reading all like the self help. And I'm like, now I want nothing to do with it. Nothing.
Yeah, I needed a brain break, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it is for me now. And I've talked about it on the podcast. My cousin started a book club. It's going to be 2 years old in March, and that book club
Nice.
like literally saved my life. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was, first of all, so amazing to come together with a lot of women who I wouldn't say are like-minded at all. We come from very different walks of life,
Yeah.
but it's so amazing that every 4 to 6 weeks we come together, and it's just like a great time to connect, and we all like talk about whatever book we read, and we do
Yeah.
different themes every time we meet, and it was just so healing to me to be able to step out of my own grief and life falling apart and being in that uncomfortability of
Mm-hmm.
like the transition time. And it really gave me like this thing to look forward to, and this like healthy space to share with
Yeah.
women who I'm sure, like, even though we come from very different walks of life, very different mindsets. And a lot of them, like, I wouldn't say are like me at all. They're not into conspiracies. They're not
Right. Yeah.
spiritually minded people. They don't really care about that kind of stuff. And for all of us to come together like once a month, once every 6 weeks to share experience and to just hold space for one another, it's so healing.
Yeah, it is.
And it just goes to show you like people can come from different schools of thought and come together in a respectful and
Hmm.
supportive way.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's the message today. It's like it doesn't matter where you're coming from or um like we've been our differences have been pitted against one another, and it's time that we come together now. And I think that these tragedies that happen are sad, and whether they're conspiracy or natural disaster, whatever they may be, it's an
Hmm.
opportunity for us to come together as a community, both on a small scale and a large scale. I think
Hmm.
I know you were probably, because we're around the same age. So I think like we were pretty young when 9/11 happened. Like I think
Oh
I
yeah, I think
was,
I was in like seventh grade,
okay,
sixth
yeah.
grade.
So I was in like fifth grade. Um, but what happened after, to see communities come together, and
Hmm.
that's like the most united that this country has ever been. And yeah, maybe it's because we were united against a common enemy. Like there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
And whether it was right or wrong, like, that's neither here nor there. But like, I think we're seeing that happen too. Like, it's very unfortunate what's happening in California, but I think that we're seeing people come together like we haven't seen in a really long time. And with
Absolutely.
this last election, like we were divided by gender, by sexuality, by skin color, by affiliation. Like we were divided any way that we could have been divided. And now it's time to heal those divisions and start
Hmm.
to come together, whether it be because of this tragedy or just because this is the way forward, to come together in our differences. Like I
Yeah.
think that you have to look for the silver linings. And I think that it's unfortunate what's happening and it's devastating, but
Yeah.
there's a reason. There's a reason for the season.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
So if people are looking for some tools, I know you have some great tools to help people move through these energies. So if people are looking to work with you and to work with their energy body, how can they find you?
So I have a website. They can find me there, venusrisingri.com. And I'm also on Instagram, venusrising.ri. And I have many different ways we could work together. I have a weekly membership, or a monthly membership, I should say, where we do weekly energy clearings and healing. So it is a guided journey into clearing your energy. Whether you're there on the live or not, your energy still worked, which is a beautiful thing. It's kind of like what we were saying, like getting your hand held. It feels nice, but it is nice to fully realize the energy when you do listen to the recording, or if you join live. It helps to understand what you're going through on a collective and individual basis. And then if you want like a personal one-on-one as to like a deep dive into your own energy and what's going on for you personally, I do have offerings for that as well. And that would be my release session where we do a full deep dive into the energetic system that you are in right now, unwinding and releasing patterns that are holding you back, all the fun stuff, looking at the tools that you specifically need. Yeah.
And then if you're local to Rhode Island or close by, Danielle and I
Yes.
are doing an in-person event at Sway Yoga on January 31st. So if you want to know more about that, you can reach out to either of us on social media. On this podcast, there's a way to reach out to me, and we can get you a little bit more information on that. But we're going to be doing a new moon in Aquarius sound bath. And that should be just
That's
another
gonna be
really
amazing.
awesome tool. Yeah, I'm excited for it. I think
Mm-hmm.
it'll be an exciting
Sound
way to
is so amazing and so healing, and transformative, just like really moving the energy in such a profound way.
Yeah. Sound healing was one of the ways that I really got into meditation because I was one of those people who were like, I can't sit and meditate. That's boring. But sound gave me something to focus on, and focusing on the sound, on the frequency, really helped me to let go of those crazy thoughts that come up, and it allowed me to find the present moment, giving me something to focus on. So sound has been greatly healing for me and has
Hmm.
been a great tool to have in my toolbox. So I'm excited to be able
Yeah,
to share that with others and to be in a collective space with you.
me too. It's gonna be awesome.
Can't wait. Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you found some value in it. If you feel like somebody else could use this podcast, if they need to hear this message, share it with a friend. It helps to propel us forward. If you like, subscribe, share, and do all of that good stuff. I'll hear wow, I can't even talk this full moon. Like time for me to go to bed, I think.
Yep. Nap time.
Yeah. I hope you find exactly what you need in this space this week. Thank you for being here, and I'll talk to you next time.